The 415ers podcast brought to you by the Odyssey Sports Podcast Network with 95.7 The Game. That is Marc Grandi. I'm Evan Giddings. We're coming at you twice a week here in training camp, three times a week. Once the preseason starts, August 13th, I believe their first of 3 preseason games, and that'll be in Las Vegas against the Raiders. Please download the Odyssey app, subscribe to us while you're there. Also check out the 95.7 The Game YouTube channel, like and subscribe while you're there as well. Okay, Mark, so the second part of this is about Trey Lance, and quarterbacks coach Brian Griese finally on the record has been asked about Trey Lance, and nothing necessarily crazy to report, but was just talking about Lance and his health. And this has been a common theme of quotes from John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan. Pretty much anybody that has to do with a quarterback in San Francisco has discussed the fact that Trey Lance is finally healthy. And Brian Griese specifically mentioned healthy enough to get back to throwing the ball like he did in college. I don't know if you take anything away from that, but it just points to me, again, it's a reminder that Trey Lance has not played much football since graduating from high school. And Brian Griese is finally glad that at least he gets to see him repetitively in training camp.
Yeah, and I mean, that's ultimately what this guy needs. The comments from Brian Griese are interesting to me, though, because it seems like you're starting to see people, both inside and outside of the 49ers organization, be a little more complimentary of Trey Lance. And I know they've never really bashed him, at least specifically within the 49ers organization, but for Griese to come out and say that he looks a lot better, quote, a lot better in his third training camp. One, Griese wasn't here for his first training camp, but was obviously here last year, and of course is here currently. It means that I think I take him at his word that he is improving, that he's getting better. He's finally been able to put together an offseason in which, for the most part, he was healthy. I know there was a little bit of concern right after the NFC Championship game that his progress from that broken ankle was a little delayed. Remember when he was getting the boot off and there was a little bit of hubbub about that it wasn't out yet and he wasn't cleared for full offseason activity. But for the most part, he's had a relatively healthy and normal offseason. And despite the fact that he's not getting a lot of first team reps, he is getting the opportunity to throw a lot. And he had that opportunity all offseason. We spent a lot of time talking about his individual work with Jeff Christensen, who happens to also be Patrick Mahomes' personal quarterback coach. And they've been at workouts together with Jeff Christensen. So that's all good news. And I do take the 49ers, Brian Griese included, at their word that Trey Lance looks a lot better. It seems like the last few practices as well, as we record this on Wednesday, they did not practice today. But Sunday was a really good day for Trey Lance. Monday was pretty good as well. It seems like he is being more consistent, which was the issue. What you would hear is he would make a mistake, he'd throw a pass in the dirt, he'd throw an interception, he'd miss a read, he'd throw late, he'd throw behind a receiver, whatever the issue was, and he'd kind of hang his head, and it would kind of affect him. But it seems like he's getting past those sorts of things, and he's able to stack not only just reps on top of each other, but days and practices now. And I don't know how you feel. I also heard Adam Schefter on the Pat McAfee show on Wednesday, today as we record this, say that the 49ers feel like he's as prepared as he's ever been, more prepared than he's ever been to be a quarterback in this league. And it just seems like more positive reviews for Trey Lance are trickling out now. Not that there weren't those in the past, but it just seems like it's happening a little more often now than it has in the past, which I probably take them at their word. Trey Lance is improving, which is obviously good news for the 49ers, but it's still not really a competition, which I can understand. But good news that he's getting better.
I mean, I would hope so. These are all comments that you expect to hear from a guy in his third year as a former number 3 overall pick, that he's putting it together and it's coming through. According to Matt Mayoko of NBC Sports Bay Area, Trey Lance in his 11 on 11 reps has taken 80 snaps. That's 4 more than Sam Darnold, by the way, for those counting. And unofficial passing is 26 of 40, so 65%. That's slightly better than what Brock Purdy has done in his 88 all first team reps. So, look, he appears to be stepping up. The consistency is TBD, I think, at this point. It's hard to tell from 6 days about anything, but I think that Trey Lance is on the right track. And if he is, Mark, then in my mind, he should be the backup quarterback. And that's also a great place to be, as we've come to know in San Francisco, because you might be thrown into the game
Yeah.
before you know it. And then Trey Lance, who has had to work for the opportunities in this training camp, now his third, will have to perhaps at some point this season fight for opportunities in game to earn them, to keep them. And to me, this is going to play itself out on the field. So, look, I'm very happy that Brian Griese is seeing improvement from Trey Lance. I think we all are, even from the clips, from being down in person and talking to people that have seen him in camp. It appears to be like he is, a brand new version of himself. Um, I don't know. I mean, I guess the question is, Mark, so do you believe Adam Schefter that he is saying these things to be nice, or is he saying these things because the San Francisco 49ers would like him to say these things so that his trade value is a bit higher in case they indeed do want to move him?
Well, you took the words right out of my mouth because Adam Schefter, again, on the Pat McAfee show on Wednesday, basically said, and he openly admitted to it, which I think is what makes this conversation, these comments specifically so interesting. He's like, I'm not out at Niners camp. I'm not out at really any camps. I can't be. There's so many of them, and I just can't be there. So I'm interested in how Trey Lance is doing. And this is me doing my Adam Schefter, not really actually trying to do anything. I'm just speaking for Adam Schefter. He, said, so I called up a couple of guys at the 49ers and just started asking questions. How is Trey Lance doing? And what they said to him, again, according to Adam Schefter, he said, he's had a fantastic offseason, his best offseason so far, and he looks more prepared than he's ever been. And that, to answer your question, I think it could be true, and I think it probably is, but at the same time, it's also the information that the 49ers want out there. If they're set on keeping him, doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. And, the rest of the league could think the world of him. If the Niners are going to keep him, it doesn't matter. If they are okay with keeping him, but they're open to the idea of trading him, they want the rest of the world to think the best they possibly can about Trey Lance. So the fact that these comments come from Adam Schefter, who hasn't seen practices, who hasn't been there in person, and isn't judging every throw and every overthrow and every underthrow and every fumbled snap and every misread, the fact that he is not seeing that himself and he's instead just telling us what people within the 49ers organization are telling him is interesting to me, because you get away from the, oh my God, Trey Lance looked better than Brock Purdy today. You're just getting to what the base of what the 49ers actually feel, or at least what they want the rest of the world to think. So I think there's some truth to the fact that the 49ers want to pump up Trey Lance's value, not because they're set on trading him, Evan, but because having a high expectation, a high profile of Trey Lance elsewhere could not possibly be a bad thing for this organization, whether they move on from him or they keep him on their roster.
Yeah, I think it's a win-win, but I'm generally inclined to take whether it's Adam Schefter's or the 49ers, in this case, quarterbacks coach Brian Griese's word for it, and take that as a good sign that Trey Lance is progressing and that Trey Lance is right where he's supposed to be, which is improving as a quarterback. Because the one thing that he cannot do in a very pivotal third season for him is take a step back. Now, I know that there's been comments about how he needs to play and they want to get more of a look at him, but that to me is going to come in the preseason. And I know that we can discuss on our next episode coming up next Tuesday just how much we expect to see all the quarterbacks as we enter kind of the beginning of the preseason area. But to me, I mean, Trey Lance is on the right track, and I don't think that means the Niners are trying to pump his value up because they want to trade him. I think it's because he's legitimately getting better as a quarterback, and that's something that we all want to see and that we all want to hear. So, in my mind, this is good news.